My name is Estela Vázquez. I'm an executive president of LLP. And let me call the first speaker of the evening to welcome you to this event, Maria Castañeda, Secretary Treasurer, LLP. Maria.
Good evening, brothers and sisters, and good evening, comrades. On behalf of 1199 and my fellow officers that are here tonight, we would like to welcome you all here. We're very proud to support the Left Labor Project initiatives in really bringing us together to discuss and confront the basic issue that is so critical in front of us, which is where do we go from here after winning this election?
But now, let me introduce our next speaker, a very old friend of the movement. I should not say old, experience. We go back with many battles. Kevin Lynch was a labor organizer in District 65 in the 1960s. Over the years, Kevin has organized more than 20,000 workers in the city. He has helped coordinate many marches.
This fall, the LLP is unfolding a new campaign under the slogan, create jobs, tax the 1%. Our analysis, and I'm sure many of you agree with this, is that the general population, thanks to Occupy Wall Street largely, many of whom marched with us last week, the general population is now talking about the 1% versus the 99%.
Please join me in welcoming my friend, mi compañera, Erica Lewis.
Through her activism and her scholarship over many decades, Angela Davis has been deeply involved in movements for social justice around the world. Her work as an educator, both at the university level and in the larger public sphere, has always emphasized the importance of building communities of struggle for economic, racial, and gender justice.
And many people who were brought out by that first campaign, especially those who had never before been moved to get involved in electoral politics, almost forgot the limits of electoral politics. Perhaps they forgot that this was about electing a president of the same imperialist, militarist, racist, anti-union United States of America. But what was achieved 4 years ago was still earth-shaking, and we should never forget that. Even if the last 4 years have not been what many people hoped they would be. When the economy crashed, many people expected Obama to be the 21st century FDR, right? With new economic and social programs that would pull us out of this recession, depression. However, those who were waiting for Obama to serve as our new FDR had a very warped view of history. And we can ask, was it indeed FDR who gave us, on his own individual initiative, on his own accord, unemployment insurance, Social Security, all of those elements of what has come to be called the New Deal? It was not. It was masses of people led by labor, led by communists and other socialists, and hundreds of thousands demanding these programs. the unemployed councils preventing evictions, etc. If we believe that it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt as an individual who was responsible for these programs, we are dead wrong. So imagine what it might have been like. Imagine what might have been possible had we taken to the streets the day after inauguration. Both to celebrate Obama's election and to pressure his administration to move on the issues we are most concerned about. He had said he was going to shut down Guantanamo. Guantanamo is still functioning. We should have called for the immediate closing of Guantanamo. And of course, we can never expect to elect a president who will lead us to the promised land. Not even a powerful mass leader can do that. We have to do that for ourselves. But I think we did learn very important lessons from the last election. We learned that things have changed. Things have changed for the better, and a few things have changed for the worse. Many felt that young people might sit out this election. I don't know why it is that young people are always characterized as apathetic. Why does that happen? And young people maintain their enthusiasm. And of course, there's almost a new generation of youth each election. There's a big difference between age 17 and age 21, right? And then, of course, we have the whole Occupy movement. And how important it is to maintain a historical memory that allows us to trace our own development through the movements we produce. The so-called gender gap played an important role. Women voted for Obama something like 55 to 44% this time. And men by 45 to 52. But to try to understand what lies behind those statistics requires us to look a little bit more closely at the gender gap, which isn't just a white thing. As a matter of fact, women of color voted even more overwhelmingly for Obama. As a matter of fact, 96% of black women voted for Obama. Compared to 87% of black men. And 76% of Latino women voted for Obama, compared to 65% of Latino men. And then huge numbers of Asian American women. If we add Native American women and Arab American women, we see that it really was women of color who carried the day. And then we have to face the fact that a majority of white men voted for Romney. Yes. And so, what does that mean? It means, once again, we have to raise the issue of racism. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. There has been the assumption for the last speak about racism so much. It would fade away. If only we learned how not to see race, colorblindness, racism would fade away. But it has taken up residency in the psyches of so many people. And that is very much related to the fact that this racism is lodged in the structures of our institutions. And all we need to do is open our eyes and in order to see that even as we celebrate the ascendancy of people of color to high places in our political and economic hierarchies, their positions cannot compensate for the fact that, for example, there are more black men under the control of the criminal justice system today than there were enslaved in 1850. And this is what Michelle Alexander calls the new Jim Crow. But so many people at the bottom of the hierarchy have been relegated to oblivion. They are not even recognized in the current political discourse. And this is a class strategy. The term poor is hardly used. And of course now New Orleans is being rebuilt. People learned all over the world from Katrina that the kind of poverty that is generally only associated with people in the global South is found in the United States of America. And as New Orleans is being rebuilt, it is not going to accommodate poor black people in numbers that even begin to match their pre-Katrina presence. And it's what Naomi Klein calls disaster capitalism, right? Take advantage of the disasters to create profitable opportunities. But if the term poor is not used, we don't even hear the term working class. And this is what you might call a discursive assault on the labor movement. Only the middle class achieves visibility in current political discourse. And you know that that Obama participates in that. Have you heard him use the term working class any time recently? And if we have to make the working class more visible, we also, I believe, have to recognize that working class issues should embrace a whole range of issues. Certainly jobs, and the campaign Create Jobs, Tax the 1% is a very important post-election campaign. It would be amazing to have a mobilization on Inauguration Day with a million people in Washington saying, create jobs, tax the 1%. And let me say that all of the issues that we consider to be the kind of marginal social issues have to be incorporated into the demand for jobs and into this demand to tax the 1%. We know that the immigrant rights movement is central to any struggle for democracy in this country. If the campaign for black freedom, which still continues, produced in the 20th century the most important civil rights movement of that time, we can say that the immigrant rights movement is the most important civil rights movement of the 21st century. It was a brilliant idea to choose May 1st for those initial massive mobilizations. And during the lead up to the election, few of these really important issues were debated. We did not hear very much about the immigrant rights movement, about the state of our schools, about the continued crisis of over-incarceration and over-punishment, the part played by private prison corporations in pushing for repressive legislation designed to incarcerate increasing numbers of immigrants. You know, last year, almost half of a million immigrants were detained. And this morning I saw, it was this morning I believe, I saw a Boston Globe story about this issue. It featured a 29-year-old African woman who was a citizen of France, who was waiting for her resident papers to come through, and she overstayed her visa. Finally, she realized she was going to have to go back to France and wait until her resident papers came through. But she was arrested at the border, put in a detention facility, and not given her medication, where she died of congestive heart failure. And there is a picture of her husband crying in her grave on the front page of the Boston Globe. The campaign around immigrant rights is linked to the campaign for labor rights. And considering the assault on workers over the last year, Scott Walker's out-and-out war on public workers as a punitive solution to budget problems. But even though that legislation was pushed through, there is a powerful ongoing movement in defense of public workers in Wisconsin. And that movement reverberated all the way to Tahrir Square. And it has also inspired the labor movement in Michigan to passionately resist the right to work legislation. And people are vowing to remove the Republican legislators that voted for this horrendous right to work bill. Can you imagine Michigan, the home of the auto workers, as a right to work state? That is not right. It's like the Confederacy infiltrating above the Mason-Dixon line. And of course, Michigan is the home of John Conyers, who has been introducing the most progressive legislation in Congress in more than 4 decades. And recently, you know, he's introduced again H.R. 4277, which will create a tax on large-scale Wall Street securities transactions in order to fund 2.5 to 4 million jobs. So that's to create jobs, tax the 1%, tax the rich, abolish imprisonment, rebuild education, jobs for all.
And of course, an internationally renowned singer.
That's enough, sweetheart.
We'll take it from here.
Much that we know about labor, much that we know about life, much that we know about struggle, has been because of the presence of artists. Paul Robeson, when he first came to see a small group of us perform, said to us when he understood it, that our desire to be in the arts was passion, not just a sense of opportunity or driven by false illusions or illusions that were false. He pointed out that picking art as a profession was a noble thing to do because, after all, artists are the gatekeepers of truth. And with that anointing, we should understand that our mission was not casual. It was deeply rooted in purpose and an opportunity. So when I came, my gods and my passion and my goals were not driven by great stars that preceded me or great successes on the charts. We didn't have charts back then. And all of a sudden, I looked around and I found that most people who wanted to be in the arts were really seeking to achieve a higher station in life through economic attraction in the world of the arts. And I and the young people caught in that moment looked at the other options, which was the service of humanity, which was to use art as a tool, which was to inspire, which was to document the world that we saw, and be able to resist those who had commanded the space that artists were required to deal with when it came to having our voices heard. More often than other things we wanted to say were not considered appetizing, were not considered attractive. Nobody wanted to hear stories that had to do with slavery, stories that had to do with the transient white folks that went berserk for years in the street, cruelly destroyed the indigenous. When the indigenous was destroyed, they went and got others to fill the space of the Native Americans who had been preempted through genocide to another station in life, and then along came Africans. The only thing that I really knew about all of this history was what had been left behind by the gatekeepers of truth, those who had notated, those who had written hymns and letters and told stories that were handed down from generation to generation because we had not yet been given the privilege of engaging in the printed word. We had to find another hustle. And we did. And it was called liberation struggle. It was called using our resources and our art and our power and our voices and our songs and our music. All through the centuries of art in this country that has meant anything, it has been the art that has come from that environment. It's come from those who have committed themselves in the pursuit of democracy and greater honor among fellow beings. So I came here with that notion in mind.
But let's learn to combine some patience with the urgency that we need in order to create a world that is free of racism and xenophobia, a world from which poverty has been expunged and the availability of food is not subject to the demands of capitalist profit. A world that is based on the fulfillment of needs and not on the exploitation of human labor. A world without homophobia. A world without transphobia. A world without the prison industrial complex. A world in which everyone learns how to respect the environment and all of the creatures, human and non-human alike, who inhabit our worlds. A world where equality and justice and peace prevail.